Life Rhythms with Ryan Skyy. Observing the world around me, looking inward, trying to make sense of it all. Hey guys, welcome to Life Rhythms Radio Show. I'm so excited about today's episode. I'm your host, DJ producer Ryan Skyy. Life Rhythms is a show that revolves around my personal growth journey. You see, as a songwriter and a music producer, I spend a lot of my time observing the world around me, looking inward, trying to make sense of it all. I've been doing it in song form, and now I do it with my radio show. The way the show works is every episode we feature one song and one topic. I use the song as a jumping off point for whatever the personal growth topic is going to be. We have a special guest joining us today. I'm excited to have Felix Jaehn from Germany, DJ producer. I'm sure you've heard his songs over the years. He's the youngest German artist to receive multiple Diamond Awards with his 2015 remix of Cheerleader and his single Ain't Nobody. And so Felix is going to be joining us in just a couple minutes. We're going to be featuring his song No Therapy, which you heard a little clip of it coming into the start of this episode. I'm excited to have Felix on because when we get into the interview, we're going to talk about the single No Therapy, which is part of his upcoming album that he's been releasing single by single. But the reason I'm excited is because the whole concept behind the single and the album that he's putting out is it's all about Felix's personal growth journey. He's pouring it into his music. And what I really like about Felix and why I'm excited to talk to him is he seems to be like an open book, and he seems to be in this place in his life where he's starting to share and be vulnerable and kind of be a leader and set an example of what it means to share and be open and to give ourselves to the world. In his earlier works, from talking with him and in interviews, he talks about how the earlier music that he put out was all about being a DJ and having fun and the good vibes and kind of that whole DJ, that whole DJ thing of putting out fun music. But now he's kind of reached a point where he wants to put his personal story into the songs. So this is actually the first time where he co-wrote the lyrics to the songs, and he's really trying to be more personal with it. So we're going to be talking about his personal growth journey when he gets on the show. We're going to talk about kind of like low points and what led him to a place where he felt like he needed to make a change, and just what the process is like putting ourselves into the music and sharing that with the world. It's inspiring to me. It's what this show is all about. And I tell him that if I could like make up a guest on a computer software, it would be somebody like Felix, because everything that he's all about with his music is exactly what we're doing on the show Life Rhythms. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, I'm going to have Felix with me. I'm going to have my manager and co-host Scott Waldman, and we're going to dive into the music and Felix's journey right after this short break. Hey guys, welcome to Life Rhythms Radio Show. I'm your host, DJ producer Ryan Skyy. I'm excited today. I've got a special guest joining us, Felix Jaehn. Hey Felix.
Hey, what's up, Ryan?
Excited to have you on the show.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us. I also have my manager and co-host, Scott Waldman. Hey Scott.
I'll be right by your side. I'll be there when you need me.
Yes.
I feel that lyric. Smart. What's up, Scott?
I mean, I might as well just be quiet the rest of the show because I peaked.
Scott's like winning. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. So Scott usually always opens with a lyric tie-in. So on the show, Felix, it's a personal growth show that revolves around my personal growth journey. So I'm excited to have you on because the more I was looking, we're featuring your song No Therapy. Mm-hmm. And as I'm reading about it, other interviews you've done, and I saw that this album that you're releasing. So No Therapy is part of an album that you're putting out song by song, mm-hmm. right?
Yeah, exactly.
And it revolves around your personal growth journey.
It does, yeah. I started writing it 2 years ago in LA, actually, after I had released my first album. And I was kind of seeking a new purpose because in the beginning I was like, I just want to be a DJ and producer, and I want to tour the world and live from making music. And then after I accomplished that, I was like, okay, so what's next? And I kind of felt like I wanted to go deeper, and I started to co-write all of the songs, and I started to write about my personal journey, and this became my purpose, and it's still today.
That's awesome. I think that's so cool that you're putting your personal story into the music. It must take a bit of courage and vulnerability to do that.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
I know.
That's the beautiful thing about it. I think you got to make yourself vulnerable, because only if we're open, we're free. And I feel like as long as the energy is pure and you send that out to the world, only good will come back.
I'm excited about this interview. This is going to be good. So that's
Very
great.
on brand. Very on brand.
I know. So usually what I do is we feature one song, and then I usually pick a specific topic based on that song.
Uh-huh.
But since the whole concept behind your album and the song is pretty much like if I could create my own guest like from scratch in a computer simulation, it would be you, somebody who's all about personal growth in the dance world and the feel good vibes and wanting to share your story. I mean, that's like what this show is all about. So rather than have a very specific topic, I just wanted to talk about the concepts behind the songs and the music and personal growth. And I'm curious to learn these things about you.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
It's
so the
like
song,
science, Ryan, it's like weird science for a guest. Like we built the robot.
Yeah. Yes. Weird. Have you seen that movie Weird Science, Felix?
No, I haven't.
Scott, he probably wasn't even born.
He 100% wasn't born, because he was born in 94, right? So yeah. That movie came out, I think, in 1985 when you were like -9. But basically, two nerdy kids build their dream woman, and they learn a lot. Anyway, it's a great 80s movie.
Nice. I should check it out.
You should.
Yeah, they make their dream woman out of a computer, right? And she comes out of a computer.
I feel like society is getting extremely close to that, and I'm afraid of it.
Yeah, we are moving in that. It's becoming reality. In the 80s, it was probably such a far-fetched idea.
Yeah, and soon we'll be like, shit, why did we even have this idea?
Why did we plant that seed in society? Because now we're doing gene editing and all kinds of weird stuff.
Growing.
And then the Clone Wars will happen and we're all screwed.
The Clone Wars. Oh, my gosh. The Civil War with the robots.
Anyway, thanks for coming, Felix.
Because let's talk about music.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so the song No Therapy, the Nocturnal Times says that the song leans into the importance of coming together and helping one another in love and solidarity. Subscribe to that?
Mm-hmm. Got that.
Yeah. Okay, yes. And then Culture, I was reading about Culture, so they describe the song as a dark, brooding club ballad or club anthem leaning vibe. They say it's perfectly paired with harmonious and uplifting lyrics, courtesy of Swedish singer-songwriter. Is it Nia?
Nia, it is.
Is that how you say it?
Uh-huh.
And Nia and Bryn. Christopher.
Bryn Christopher.
Bryn.
Yeah.
See, I originally read it as Bryn, and I thought, oh, no, it's probably Brian.
No, it is actually Bryn.
Oh, okay.
But
Bryn.
So it's all good.
So you did a writing camp with them.
Yeah.
And this song was born out of that.
Uh-huh. I made a remix for Nia of a song called Some Say. And we had so much fun, like doing the remix and talking to each other. And it just went so well that I was like, okay, let's do a camp with all the writers of Some Say and kind of bring the dream team of the Some Say remix back together. And then I invited them to my home, and we did, like where I am right now, we did the songwriting camp here in March.
That's so cool. When you get in the room and you do these sessions, wanting to put your own personal story in it, what is that process like? Because like on my end here, I have people that I write with here in LA, and usually when we get in a room, they're always asking me like, okay, Ryan, like what's going on in your life? Who are you dating? You know, what are things you want to talk about? Any like interesting personal stories? And then I kind of share what's kind of the latest thing with me, and then we'll figure out a concept for the song and kind of like try to get it into the lyrics. Mm-hmm. And it's an interesting process. I mean, what was it like for you writing No Therapy? What was it like when you got into the studio?
It's pretty similar to what you just described. It's a lot of talking in the beginning and a lot of sharing experiences. And like when we wrote No Therapy, we were already coming towards the end of the writing process for my album. I already have so many songs, and I want them to all, like from track 1 to 10, like it's like a double album. The first 10 tracks are like the storytelling part. And then the other 10 tracks are songs that I wrote along the way and laugh songs and all of that I couldn't include before because I was so into just writing about myself and the story. The first 10 tracks, like from the track 1 to 10, they tell a story. So I was like, okay, I already have track 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 8. So now we need something for in between. So it was actually quite complex. And I was like already kind of scripting this story in my head. And I knew like what I needed to fill the gaps. So we wrote it quite specifically for that. And at the same time, just before the camp, I came back from an 8 weeks vacation that included a 2-week stay at a Buddhist monastery in south of France.
I read about that.
And I was feeling like so refreshed and newborn. And I left all my struggles behind because I actually did a lot of therapy sessions over the past couple of years. And at that time, I was feeling like I don't need no therapy anymore. Like finally, let's just focus on the good moments and live and be together. And that was the vibe of which the song like kind of was born.
That's so interesting. When I first heard the song and saw the lyrics of "We don't need no therapy," I didn't know at first what your intentions were. And at first I thought, I don't know if I agree with that because I think everyone needs therapy. Mm-hmm. But then when I read about the concept is about, wow, I'm at a place now where I can move beyond that I'm healed and I'm here in the present moment. I can relate to that. I think that's such a unique spin on the song.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had like the thought that you first had. I actually had it too. Like after we had written the song, I was like, should I really tell people not to do therapy? Well, I'm all about it and it helped me so much. But I feel like every song is a moment, you know, and this moment was also real and it's also part of my story. And I don't think you can be 100% correct on all levels with every song in all meanings. So I feel like it's totally okay. But that's why I also highlighted in the interviews, I was like, you know what? Actually, I did therapy. So if you need help, please get it.
Yeah.
But sometimes, and I think it's true too, it's like, to me, happiness can only exist when living in the present moment. It's all about being present. And when you're anxious and when you're not feeling happy, it's mostly because you're either reminiscing about the past or thinking about the future. And when you're not present. And the song is about having a moment together with friends or loved ones and partying and just enjoying the moment. And as soon as you do that, you'll be present and then the problems disappear, at least for a moment. And that's what the song is also about, like an escape from the struggles.
What was that, Scott?
I said, just live it up. Just live it.
That's the advice of the song. Just living it up. Isn't it? It is amazing how when you focus on the present, how these problems go away. That wasn't something that I realized until I discovered the work of Eckhart Tolle. Mm-hmm. And I talk about him all the time on the show. And we were like, we should get him to sponsor the show because I'm always mentioning him. But the power of now and the power he created that awareness for me, realizing that when I was suffering, it was because my mind was thinking about the future or thinking about the past. And in the moments where I was really focused on the present, that all just melts away, as you had said.
100%, yeah. My master, my teacher is Thich Nhat Hanh. I'm all about him. But I read a little bit about and from Eckhart Tolle as well, actually. It's really interesting. It's a lot of similar thoughts in there, just from a different angle, really.
Well, what's interesting is what I thought of is when you go to a show and you see someone in the crowd filming on their phone the entire show, they're not really living in the moment, are they? They're just filming some crappy video quality of a show as opposed to just filming a song or a part of a song, and they're not going to really be enjoying the show.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like smartphones,
does that make sense to anyone?
Filming at shows or whatever, like spending time on social media is what these videos are mainly for, to share in the end and to show others that they had a nice moment, is one of the main problems, I feel like. And I think that's one of the reasons why anxiety is increasing so much amongst like our society at the moment, is that people live too much in a parallel, like digital world. and they're kind of disconnected from the reality.
Yeah, it's something that I struggle with sometimes is wanting to capture something, but then also being aware that if I'm focused on capturing it, I'm actually missing the experience myself.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of have to weigh, do you split the time, or do you kind of weigh which, what do I want to be present, or do I want to capture this moment?
Yeah. I mean, I tend to be present, to be honest, but luckily when I play shows and I travel, I usually have a photographer and videographer with me, so I don't have to worry about capturing the moments. There will be somebody taking a picture.
That's the key.
So that works for me.
Yeah, so we just all need our own personal videographer and photographer following us around, and we'll be good.
Easy.
Well, the economy's in trouble, so there's going to be plenty of people who could do it. So
Felix, with this record, this is like kind of the end of the journey for the album, right? Where you're at a place where you don't need therapy. And what was the first single that you released?
We didn't release them in all of the album track listing, but the first track, that's like the track that's going to be number 1 on the album, is called Sicko, together with Fangs and Gashi.
And so Sicko was you, the beginning of your journey, right? Where you're kind of realizing you want to change, or there's kind of an opening where you realize you're sick, right? Or that there's changes that you want to make. Okay.
Like it's about me being emotionally sick and disbalanced, and that I feel like the seeds and the characteristics of myself that I would label as negative are kind of way up too high, and the positive is somewhere down there. And it also like caused a lot of loneliness, because due to being emotionally sick, I wasn't able to be in healthy relationships, and I wasn't able to feel the love that was sent my way. So I kind of felt like within this state of being emotionally sick, I feel really isolated, and there was a lot of just shit going on inside of me. And at the same time, I was trying to compensate. Like I was buying a sports car, and I was buying so many clothes and so much shit thinking that it would make me happier one day. So also like following what I believe to be the wrong worth in a way, it's like there's nothing wrong with driving a sports car if you just love the actual moment of driving the car, but I feel like often when we're talking sports cars and jewelry and designer clothes and shit, people just buy it for the external. They just buy it to show to someone that they made it or whatever. And I feel like this will just never make you happy. I completely stopped to do stuff for somebody on the outside.
Yeah. So it comes down to your intentions behind the item. Are you buying the sports car because it's enhancing your sense of self, and you're identifying with that sports car? It's becoming part of your identity. Or as you had said, are you buying it because you just love the moment of driving in the car and the thrill of that experience?
Mm-hmm.
And something Eckhart Tolle says is that we may think that we're not identified with something, but you don't really know until you lose it. And when you lose it, the experience, what you experience as a result of that will tell you right away whether you were identified with it or whether it's okay. You're okay letting it go.
Yeah, for sure. I was okay letting it go.
What was that?
I was okay letting it go.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. So now, do you have do you have guilty pleasures now that you like in terms of just the experience of the item, or is it more experiential stuff for you than physical things?
It's definitely more experiential stuff. I still live a luxury life. I mean, I live on my own in a big house, and I have a fancy studio here, and I have a spa and a sauna and all this stuff. So, I don't live in a tent yet. I still do enjoy the money that I make, but it's more about like the experiences. Like I just love the spa because it does something to my body, and it makes me feel nice, and I can share it with people and have like real moments in it. I don't really spend money on fancy things anymore.
More experiential stuff. I see. That's cool that you can still enjoy the fruits of your labor, but not be in a place where, as we were saying before, you're over-identifying with it. It's just more of enjoying your creations and trying to be present in this life that you have. So I was reading about in an interview with Flaunt, you had mentioned it already in this interview. You talked about you went on a mindfulness retreat at a Buddhist monastery. And and I was also reading that your mother, she's the one who she's when she was traveling to India and becoming a yoga teacher. A yoga teacher.
I want a yoga teacher.
She kind of planted some of these seeds early in your life, these mindfulness seeds.
Yeah.
And so now, are you a practicing Buddhist now, or did you go on the retreat just for the experience of it?
I don't think I would say that I'm a Buddhist, because I also don't want to identify too much with a religion. But I definitely live by a lot of ideas that come from Buddhism, and I meditate every day, and I listen to Dharma talks, and I just live a good life. Like, I try to not take any let any toxins into my body anymore. I stopped drinking alcohol. I even stopped drinking coffee because I don't want the caffeine anymore. I went fully vegan, and I changed so many things in my life just to be at peace with myself and my surrounding, because those decisions will always influence what is around me. And
these changes that you've made, how recent is this? Because I'm curious, did you make these changes when you were touring, or have you not yet been able to hit the road with this new life that you've created for yourself?
I haven't really been able to hit the road fully with this. I made all these changes in January. I was never really drinking when playing shows though. I played all of my shows sober anyway before that already. But I noticed that I did a couple of shows this year in Germany. We had some concepts like those drive-in shows. And then I had an open air show in Berlin last month that was really cool for 800 people. And they had boxes for the people to come with their friends. And then they were able to keep a distance and everything. They came up with some cool concepts, and I managed to play shows again. And I noticed that even the experience of doing a show and having so many people wanting my attention and screaming my name and being on stage and the adrenaline rush and all of this happening at the shows was feeding my ego so much in those moments. I was like, oh wait, this is actually crazy, because before I was just at home, at peace in nature, meditating. And then when I have these experiences again, it always took me a day or maybe even two to come down from them again and get back to my breathing. It's really interesting.
It's as if the what is it? What's the word I'm trying to say, Scott?
Perception?
No, with perception. I can't think of the word right now.
Nonsensical.
But it's as if the senses are so strong that it's pulling you into your egoic state. And then to be able to experience that's something also sometimes when we're in relationships, being in that relationship can also pull you out of into your ego and kind of into your early childhood, into your inner child and those sorts of things. I know when I'm single and by myself, I feel like I feel the most present and have the most grasp on my personal growth. And then sometimes if I'm in a relationship or dating somebody and those romantic feelings are involved, I can get distracted with that. Have you experienced that?
Yeah, it's 100% the same thing. I guess it's because you're more focused on another person, on another human, and it's easy to forget about yourself and your routines when you do that. And it's also about living together. You got to make compromises. So you can't just follow your own routine and personal growth all day long. But on the other side, you get so much back. So it's also cool. And I think everything is change anyway. And it would be super boring if I would just be in my own bubble all the time.
Yeah, when there's another person that you're interacting with, there's it may bring up things that you haven't worked on, or maybe that were kind of hidden in your subconscious mind, maybe triggers from childhood or parts of your personality that
sometimes
you've repressed.
I don't have too many of these coming up anymore, luckily, because I did so much. In the past 3 years, I did so many hypnosis therapy sessions that helped me to clean up my entire childhood and my youth. And I kind of feel like I've flipped every stone there is. But who knows? Maybe there's one hiding somewhere. It might come up someday.
I'm excited. I want to learn more about this hypnotherapy you did. We're going to take a break. We're coming to the end of this segment. And when we get back, I'd love to talk more about that and some more of your journey.
Nice. Let's do it.
All right. So we're going to take a quick break. And when we get back, we're going to dive right back into our interview with Felix right after this short break. Hey, guys. Welcome back to Life Rhythms Radio Show. I'm your host, Ryan Skyy. I'm back with my guest today, Felix Jaehn. Hey, Felix.
What's up? Thanks for having me.
Round 2, baby. And I got my manager and co-host, Scott Waldman.
And if we get too high, falling right through the ceiling.
I like that. So that lyric is from Felix's track, No Therapy, which we're featuring today. Can you explain that lyric to us, Felix?
Yeah, sure. Well, clearly it's about getting too high, because I feel like we all always want to feel high and we want to feel good, no matter what is triggering that feeling, if it's love, if it's an experience, if it's drugs, if it's whatever we do, we make it to feel good, because ultimately we all want to be happy, I believe. And if you just follow those rushes of joy that make you happy for at least a moment, I feel like sometimes it can also be too much, and it gets to a point where it just has to balance out, because I believe that in life, everything always balances out. So if we get too high, we fall through the ceiling, and we like kind of, in terms of coming back down, it's like the room turns around and we fall through the ceiling. We're like all the way down again.
What are your thoughts on that, Scott?
Me, honestly, I feel that it's kind of similar to what we were discussing the last segment about filming a show on the phone, and you're kind of taking yourself out of the moment. So extremism isn't good for anything.
True.
I'm glad we agree, Felix. That means we're right.
You must be right.
No, I agree. Even with happiness, even with something that's amazingly good, you will reach a point where it's just too much, and then it has to balance out. That's how it works.
Exactly.
For you, is happiness something that you get to, or is it something that you experience? Is happiness a destination, or can it be maintained consistently, or are there ebbs and flows that are necessary?
Maintaining my happiness consistently is the only goal that I have right now in my life, and I had like this entire year. And for me, it's truly possible just by staying present. So whenever I feel like I'm not present anymore, I just take a break and I return to my breathing, or I do a quick meditation. And when I'm back in the present moment, I'm always happy.
When you had your concert recently, do you have any strategies right before the show if you're nervous to kind of calm your nerves? Like, for instance, we had Cheat Codes was on here, and one of their exercises they do fire breath right before the show, where they put their arms up above their heads and they breathe in and out really quickly, and it kind of calms the nerves. Do you have anything you do?
I do stretches, like always, like my pre-show is like at least 20 minutes before the show. I just want to be quiet and want to be by myself. My phone is already on flight mode long before that. So I'm just with the people that are there with me at the moment. And then I do a little bit of stretching, because I feel like that's super important as well to get the body ready to be on stage. And then I always meditate for like 10 minutes, and that's it. Then I'm ready to go. So it's about meditating and stretching.
Do you find when you're in the show that it can also be a form of meditation as you're performing, or are you so stimulated by the environment and just trying to perform that you're more focused on what you're doing?
It depends on where I'm at in my set. Usually when I play a DJ set, I'm telling a story through different energies and genres, and there will always be a part where I play more uplifting and pop, and I play my own songs, and it's really sing-along. And during those, most of the time, I'm really outgoing, and I'm kind of performing the track, and I'm interacting with the people. But then I have moments in the set where I go a little bit deeper, and I play some more deep house, even techno. And then I'm like totally into the music, and I close my eyes and I'm just like dancing and I feel every single sound. And then it's truly like a meditation as well. Like when I go dancing privately, if I just want to have a night out, it would always be a techno night, and I just close my eyes and dance for hours. And I had some like crazy realizations and moments happening while doing that. So yeah, it's definitely like a form of meditation too.
Are you entering a flow state sometimes whenever you're doing a show or when you're out dancing?
How do you define flow state?
So in a flow state, you lose track of time and you're totally in the moment. Kind of like if you're driving and there's a period of time where you think, wow, I just drove for 20 minutes and I didn't even realize I was driving. It's like automatic and you're in the moment and you enter this it's like your highest state of being and creativity in the moment. You might experience it sometimes when you're making music. It's like at first, because in order to enter flow state, you have to experience a bit of a challenging moment, and then you transcend that moment, and then you enter flow. So if you're in the studio, maybe at first you're discussing a topic and you're starting to write lyrics, and it seems challenging at first. I know when I produce music, I enter flow state. At first, maybe it seems like work, and then it kind of reached this tipping point where all of a sudden I'm producing and like 2 hours go by. And I'm like, wow, where did the time go? And then all of this stuff just kind of flows out.
Yeah, I have this in the studio all the time. It's like, fuck, where did my night go? I'm in the studio in the evening because that's when my phone gets quiet and I feel like I did all my emails and I talked to everybody I had to talk to, and then I just go offline and I go into the studio and I end up staying all night. And then at some point the sun comes up and I'm like, oh, I should probably go to bed. When I'm performing on big stages now, I don't get into that very often because there's always a timer and a lineup and the next guy coming. So I always have to kind of keep track of time to know how to tell my story of the set and when to like kind of come to an end. So it's harder for me when DJing to enter that state.
So I wanted to ask you, I'm curious, and you can share as much or as little as you like. So you had got to a point where you were ready. So you put out Sicko. You were at a place where you were feeling sick, mentally and emotionally sick. And I'm curious what that moment in time looked like for you. Was there a buildup? And then did you reach was there a rock bottom moment for you that kind of brought you to this point? And I'll just share my example personally. For me, I've talked about this on the show. I was raised Catholic, but for a while I didn't believe in anything. I kind of fell away from it because I felt I'm gay and I felt like the church didn't accept me. So I questioned it for a while. And then I'd say like 6 years ago, my boyfriend passed away. And when that happened, and I talked about this on the show too, when that happened, it kind of like, it ended up being a blessing in a way because it reconnected me to the spiritual world. And I discovered Eckhart Tolle, I discovered consciousness, and it kind of like started my awakening. And then over the next few years, I discovered different works and I started working on myself. But like that rock bottom moment of losing my boyfriend, and I was in New York at the time, and I just felt like all the elements of my life were ending at the same time, and it was really scary. But I had been wanting to move to LA, and when all of those things kind of came to a close, it was like this beautiful moment of the universe saying like, okay, Ryan, now is the moment for you to leave and start a new life in LA. And then so that was like my rock bottom moment, but it also started my awakening. And I'm curious for you, did you have was it a buildup over time? Did you have a rock bottom moment where you just kind of realized, wow, this, I'm ready for something new?
Wow. Thanks for sharing, first of all. That's a really beautiful story.
Thank you.
I'm glad you found your way to happiness and spirituality. For me personally, I feel like it was building up. Like when I was 19, I had just finished high school, and then I did 1 year of music college in London. And then I tried uni for like 2 months, and then I quit. And then I had a lot of pressure on me from my family to succeed. And then I was working even harder. And then I finally succeeded with music. well, I say finally, it only took me like 6 months. So I was like 19, just turning 20 when I had my like first hit Cheerleader remix that was like a number one in 55 countries. And I immediately like went from like this to like the top and touring the world and everything. And I feel like at the time, everything was just way too much for me. Like I was constantly traveling. I flew like to India and back to Europe for one festival and stuff like that, like nuts traveling and so much attention all the time, suddenly being responsible financially also for other people. And everything that came with it, I feel like was just too much for me. So I was constantly in pain and my body was telling me to stop. And it was just like at some point getting so bad that I would be like on the floor at home crying, not knowing what to do. I had panic attacks. I couldn't like be at airports on my own anymore. I was always traveling with a friend because I was too afraid to go alone. And all of this like happened within just like 3 years probably. So I kind of reached a point where I was like, why am I even doing this? You know, it's like, why do I started asking so many questions. Why do I feel lonely? Why do I feel sad? And I started to be like, okay, where's this actually coming from? You know, because on the outside, everything was perfect. You know, I'm young, I'm healthy, I'm successful, I'm loved. It's like people be like, why is he sad? You know, it's like, he has a good life. And at that point, this was stupid. I even started to blame myself for feeling bad. This was like next level shit. So then I was like, okay, I got to find answers. And then I got into meditation and I started reading books by Thich Nhat Hanh and I started going to therapy and just like step by step, I felt like the weight being lifted off my shoulders and it came together with like a lot of different things, like a lot of work with my inner child and understanding my family, where I come from, also accepting my bisexuality and coming out publicly, because this was like so hard on me too when I kept it a secret in the first years. In every interview, I was scared that somebody would ask me like who I'm dating or something like that, and I was like, I don't know, I kind of don't want to tell you.
And you don't want to be defined by it.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I was just too young and too insecure, and I was already struggling with being like a publicly well-known artist, that I didn't want to have this discussion in the beginning too, and I needed to feel more secure first. But yeah, so coming back to your question after this very long talk, I don't think that there was like for me one event where I kind of felt like, okay, I have to get into this now. But I gradually like started to go into it more and more, and I felt that I was feeling better and better. And then I did have one like click moment where I had one of those days where I was feeling super bad, and I just came home from Ibiza and I had to do a show close to my hometown the next day, and I was like feeling so bad, and I talked to my family and I was like, I kind of don't want to do the show. It's like, I feel too bad. Why am I even doing this? And I don't care about the money and the fame and whatever. And then my mom actually told me like, yeah, but you're not doing it for yourself and for the money. You're doing it for 30,000 people that are standing in front of the stage and that are all going to have like the night of their lives, and they're going to be so happy. And maybe you can start seeing and feeling that more. And from that moment, I started to connect more with the crowd emotionally, because when I was feeling bad, I kind of felt like I don't want to let it in. And it was like the energy that was thrown at me was making me feel even worse because it was just too much. Then like I started to have a new experience of playing shows where the energy actually goes out, but also comes back in. And this was like a game changer. And this is kind of where my purpose that I was seeking for myself and my creation was born as well, that I felt like, okay, so now I want to go even deeper and share my personal story that helped me to feel better with the world through my music and kind of elevate that feeling.
Scott, it sounds like Felix found his ikigai.
I think he did. And I appreciate you Felix, just like you said to Ryan, talking about his personal stories, you just did the same thing. So thank you very much. And we all need therapy.
Until we don't.
Until we don't.
Need no therapy.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your story with us. It's beautiful.
I feel like I have to kind of like one up you guys, and I'm not going to be able to. So I've been going to a therapist for quite some time, and we're doing everything over Zoom now. And it's very, very helpful to have an unbiased person help me sort out my shit.
You were seeing the therapist in person before the pandemic, right, Scott? Do you feel just as connected through Zoom? I mean, it's not the same as in person, but do you still feel that sense of connection?
I feel connected, but I'd be lying if I told you I feel just as connected. It's definitely better in person, but Zoom is definitely better than if we were just doing a regular phone call. It helps, but I mean, in person is the best. Just like Ryan, I love talking to you on the phone, but I love hugging you in person.
Oh, thanks, Scott.
You're welcome.
No, Felix, Scott and I, we haven't seen each other since the pandemic started because he has a 1-year-old. They've been in quarantine since, what is it, February? March?
March. Basically, I think the last time I saw you was probably recording an episode at Adobe. And then shortly after, I mean, Emily, who you met before, she's not on the show, but shout out to Emily. She is a full-time assistant for the company. I haven't seen her since around St. Patrick's Day-ish. So, remember what you said to me, Felix?
Honestly.
Felix, when you were talking about the experience of being on stage and receiving the energy from the crowd and kind of feeling overwhelmed, was there almost like a block at first where you weren't able to receive love and you kind of, it sounds like there was some kind of switch that happened where you were able to start actually receiving the love and giving it back to people?
Yeah, 100%. I was like emotionally blocked, and I'm not 100% sure till today what was like the day when I started to close my heart. I do believe that it goes back to like my early teens when I started noticing that I'm also into guys, and I kind of was afraid to share that with the world, and I felt like it wasn't okay in the beginning. I grew up in the countryside, and I didn't have like gay role models. I didn't there was nobody in my school openly gay or bi or whatever. Everything was like so hetero. I was like, fuck, am I wrong? So I feel like,
and then also EDM world, it can be like a bro culture.
Yeah.
Like, did you kind of find yourself in this bro-y culture, and then you're also going through these sorts of things internally?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And I feel like already back then I started to kind of close my heart a little bit, and then it goes like through my entire life. And I just had to realize that, and combined, like, I'm thinking while speaking right now, with then being successful, and suddenly so much love and energy was thrown at me. But at the same time, I was often second guessing the pure nature of that love, because I was afraid that it would only be linked to my success or money or my status or whatever. So this was the part where, like, on top of that, I was isolating myself even more. And I just had to realize that, making myself, like we said in the beginning of the show, vulnerable and opening up to people is something extremely beautiful. And I might get hurt sometimes, but I get so much more love back in return. There's actually, like, the song is not out yet, but there's going to be a song on the album, which is the first one I've written after the monastery retreat, that starts with "Let's be open, let's be free." And it's like about this moment where, like, my heart just opened up. From that day onwards, I was just floating freely, and I could, like, feel and receive all the love and also give it back more easily.
Wow, that's beautiful. I can't wait to hear that track.
Yeah, you'll have to wait a little bit. I'm sorry.
I want to ask you, do you have any funny coming out stories? I have a couple. I have two I want to share. I'm curious if you have any.
Not really. I did have one with one of my brothers, and I was kind of making a huge deal about it. And he was one of the first persons I talked to, and I didn't really know how to say it out loud. So it was going on for like minutes and minutes, and the conversation was getting serious. And he was like, so what's wrong? Just tell me. It can't be that bad. And I told him, and he looks at me. I was like, oh, wow, I thought you had something with my girlfriend.
He thought it was serious.
And then like 1 sec later, he's like, why do you even worry about that? It's not a problem. And then he gave me a big hug, and it was all good.
Good brother.
Good brother, yeah. But I don't know. No, that's pretty much it. I didn't have many coming out stories. Like most of them that are interesting. Everything, like, to be honest, 99% of them were just like, okay, cool. Whatever.
Like, what?
It's like,
where's the struggle here? It's supposed to be a struggle.
And I was like, why was I making a problem out of this for so long? You know?
That's funny. For me, my two coming out stories, one was I was in the hospital sick, and my mom had come to visit, and my best friend, Angie, at the time, she was in the hospital, and Angie just starts crying, like emotional. I'm like, why are you crying? And she's like, I was watching Will and Grace today, and it just reminds me of you and me so much. And my mom looks at Angie, and she's like, why does Will and Grace remind you of Ryan? And then my mom's like, are you gay? I'm like, no, I'm not gay, Mom. And Angie, I just kind of like brushed it off. I'm like, no. And then when Angie left, my mom asked me, she's like, Ryan, come on, are you gay? And I was like, yeah, I'm gay, Mom. Totally not how I was expecting to tell her, like in the hospital, but it just kind of happened like that.
How did she react?
She was cool with it. She was cool with it at first. It took my parents a little time to come around to it. Her initial reaction was they were always loving and accepting of me. But when she went home to my dad and told him, it took him a little longer to come around to the idea. So it kind of regressed a little bit. And then I'd say over the course of about a year. So it went from them kind of struggling with it to fast forward a year later. And actually the boyfriend that had passed away, he had come home with me for Christmas, and my mom hung up a stocking for him on the fireplace and had presents for him under the tree to open up. And now their favorite show is Modern Family. They specifically love the gay couple. Their other favorite show is Schitt's Creek, and their favorite character is the gay son. So I don't know. They're like full blown. They're all for it now. So
honestly, I just want you to know, Felix, I appreciate how open you've been this entire time, and I also mostly appreciate that you find me funny and you're laughing at every single one of my jokes. So I guess,
and I'm laughing again. Here we are.
Thank you so much. This going live tonight, so this is dope.
Amazing, yeah. No, thank you for having me.
We loved having you on. I just real quick, because I had mentioned it at the end of the first segment, I was curious about your hypnotherapy. Can you just tell us real quick about what that was like?
Yeah, for sure. So it's basically like I had two different therapists, but they all work with the same thing. I think it's like you like sit on a chair and close your eyes, and then they kind of put you through hypnosis, like into a trance state by like touching like your face in certain spots and saying certain things or playing a certain type of music. And it just put me in this state where I was still awake, but I kind of let go of any control. Like I couldn't just move my hand anymore without leaving that state, or I didn't control my thoughts anymore. And this is like, it's like you're like free floating. And then the therapist kind of helps you to guide your thoughts. And we're like going back into my childhood, like asking questions like, is it day or night? Are you inside or outside? And I just always said the first thing that came to my mind. And then suddenly I was like 8 years old, with my like backpack on, going to school. And I was like, or whatever situation came up. And I was like, I was seeing, I was smelling, I was feeling like I was in that moment. It's like kind of reliving the moment, which is so crazy. And the idea behind it is finding the earliest memory of a certain emotion, of a pain, and therefore like the trigger of it, because the theory behind it's like our brain is programmed like a computer throughout our life, and everything we experience is somewhere inside of us. So there might be an event when I was 10 years old and I experienced pain, and I still have a trigger of that in me. So whenever in my present life something is triggering the same emotion, I would be feeling the pain even though there is no pain. And then it's about like finding those triggers and taking the negative emotions and the pain out of it and coming to peace with it. And then there's nothing to be triggered anymore in the present moment. And all of this disappears, basically.
And when you say coming to peace with it, is it about shining your awareness on that moment and kind of changing the stories you tell yourself about it?
Yeah, pretty much. It's mainly about accepting it and like non-judgmentally accepting it. I think that's a really important thing. Like non-judgment comes into place there a lot. And then if necessary, you can also rewrite the story. Yeah. And take like the negative emotions out of it like that.
That's really interesting. I'm curious about the hypnotherapy. I want to try it someday. And specifically with trauma, I always thought trauma had to be some big specific event. And, but I follow, her name is Thais Gibson. She runs the personal development school, and she talks about how trauma doesn't have to be this big, specific event, that we can basically, that trauma, anything that we experience that the brain can't process, it gets stored in our mind. The pain gets stored in our mind, and then our mind rewires itself around that moment or experience. So it can be, we can experience little tiny traumas that build up over time. And these are just things that the brain isn't necessarily able to process at the moment, maybe because we're a child and we don't understand what's going on. And then as an adult, through these, like the hypnotherapy, we have to kind of go back and re-experience these things and put it into perspective, like you were saying, to find peace with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And then like in this state of trance and therapy, you can do all kinds of things. Like I also had conversations with other people all by myself. So you'd be switching characters. It's like they tip your head. It's like, okay, you're Felix again. And then you're like whoever. And then you talk for both, and you kind of have like a conversation, and you're like if it's like a person you're struggling with, it's like, and I managed to come to peace with somebody, and I didn't even have to talk to that person in real life,
That's amazing.
Because it's like just my ideas and my perception anyway, everything just happens inside of our heads.
Do you talk to yourself throughout the day? Because I talk to myself all the time. I'm like constantly talking to myself.
We know.
Sometimes I talk to plants more than I talk to myself, but I still talk to myself sometimes.
It helps me work through things. I'll talk out loud to myself, and especially because I lived in New York for years, and I was in public all the time using public transportation. But now being in LA, it's such a car culture that I'm by myself a lot driving, and I find that I can kind of like work things out in the open, and I'm by myself, and so there's no judgment,
Yeah, that's cool. And I do feel that sometimes just saying something out loud already like makes it a lot easier, or easier to understand, or whatever. So yeah, I feel that 100%.
Awesome. Okay. So we're coming to the end of this segment. The interview we're so happy to have you on, Felix. Thanks for joining us on Life Rhythms.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I truly enjoyed every second of it.
Aww. Remember what you did for me?
So we feature Felix's song "No Therapy." Listeners, go check out the single, and the other singles that are coming out. So far, I love what you've been putting out, and we're excited to keep following your journey. And I'm excited for this new record you're talking about, which we're gonna have to wait a little bit, but we were teased a little bit. So everyone, check out "No Therapy." And Felix, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me once again. Peace.